We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Thank you, Kimberly. Are you sure we're going to get there? Okay. You know, there'd been some wandering in the desert. People weren't sure they were going to get places. And we have those times in our life where, right, we're not sure we're going to get to where we want to go. But y'all got here this morning, and it is so good to be with you this morning. As we begin our service, we begin that with a land acknowledgement, and we will, I invite you, if you have your land acknowledgement candle, to go ahead and get that and light it along with our People of Color group who created this for us.
We light this candle in acknowledgement of the first peoples of this land, and to acknowledge that this land is stolen land. We recognize that this is the tribal land of the Luiseño Nation and the Kumeyaay Nation. May this flame continue to spark mindful awareness of these things that must be remembered and not go unspoken in our work of countering racial oppression. And so we light this candle in a good way and give thanks to the spirits of the land for their guiding presence among us.
So grateful to our People of Color group for creating that for us. Beloveds, we begin our service by inviting the bell. We invite the bell 3 times. Once for those who have gone before, once for those who are with us now, and once for those who will come after. This is a sanctuary for those seeking their own answers to questions of faith. This is a sanctuary for voices lifted up for justice and peace. This is a sanctuary for those seeking companionship in our struggles and our journeys. Our call to worship today is an affirmation of hope, slightly adapted words by Loretta Williams. We, the bearers of the dream, affirm that a new vision of hope is emerging. We pledge to work for that community in which justice will be actively present. We affirm that there is struggle yet ahead, yet we know that in the struggle is the hope for the future. We affirm that we are co-creators of the future, not passive pawns. We stand united in affirmation of our hope and vision of a just and inclusive society. We affirm the unity of all persons. We affirm a kinship that allows us to touch upon each other's humanity. We affirm a unity that opens our eyes, our ears, and our hearts to different but common forms of oppression, suffering, and pain. Yet we are one in the image of God. We celebrate our hopes for human unity within ourselves and within the gathered community we will discover the strength not to hide indifference, affirming that hope publicly expressed energizes and enables us to move forward. Together, we pledge, commit action to transcend barriers, be they racial, political, economic, social, or religious. We pledge to make our tomorrows become our todays. And we have an invitation to make a commitment to come and go together to the land of freedom, justice, and singing. It is good to be together, right, Kimberly?
Yes, it is. And as Reverend Beth just said, please come and go with me. Come and go with us. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
Hi. We invite you to have a chalice with you and light it along with us as we light the chalice with words by Reverend Beth Johnson. We began as a spark, an idea of a free faith. The spark was fanned with the hope of bright possibilities. It burns with the love of a vibrant community. The flame dances and grows as our shared ministry extends our circles of community, drawing them wide and wider still, and we're lighting the way for justice and joy.
Long ago, in Egypt, the Jews were slaves, sometimes called Hebrews or Israelites. Whatever they were, Pharaoh was worried. There were so many of them, more and more all the time. We'll make them work harder. We'll make them work under worse conditions. Like slavery isn't enough. I'm worried. There are too many of them and not enough of us. And so he sent out a cruel law that endangered the lives of every baby boy born to the Jewish people. Well, the couples got together. They said, maybe we should stop having babies. They say that a little girl named Miriam said, wait a minute, the Pharaoh's law endangers half of us. Your great idea would kill us all. And so they continued to have babies. But Pharaoh was adamant and sent his soldiers. Yocheved and Amram, Miriam's parents, had a little baby boy, and they were so worried about what Pharaoh might do if he was found. They hid him in a woven basket and put it into the water. Now it just so happened that Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe at that spot. Watch over your baby brother, Miriam. And so she hid and watched. And when Pharaoh's daughter picked up that baby and said, I will take him home as my own. I will adopt him. His name is Moses. Miriam jumped out and said, oh, I just happen to know a woman who would be able to nurse that baby and help you look after him. And so Moses was raised in the care of his adoptive mother and his birth mother. As he grew, he saw that the Jewish slaves were working hard for his adopted father, Pharaoh, and they were being treated cruelly. One day he came across a Hebrew slave being beaten by an Egyptian guard, and he lost his temper and killed the guard. He knew that Pharaoh would not forgive him for that, so he ran. He fled to another country and became a shepherd. There he met a woman named Zipporah and married, and they had a family of their own. But one day he went out to his flock and he saw a bush on fire. It was burning, but it wasn't burning any of the wood. The bush was fine, and Moses could swear he heard coming from the bush the voice of God telling him to go back to Egypt and free his people, the Jewish slaves. Well, Moses knew in his heart that the slavery was wrong, and he felt kindred with the people. So he went back and he talked to Pharaoh. Now, while he was gone, the old Pharaoh had died and a new one was in his place. Moses took his birth brother, Aaron, and they went to Pharaoh and they begged him, go down, Moses, way down to Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. But Pharaoh said no. And then the Nile River turned red as blood. And the people were so frightened. They couldn't drink, they couldn't fish. What could they do? And Moses went back. Let my people go. And Pharaoh said no. Well, the next thing he knew, he woke up and there were frogs in his bed. There were frogs on his plate. There were frogs everywhere in the palace, everywhere in the town, everywhere across the whole country. And Moses said, let my people go. And Pharaoh said no. Locusts came, grasshopper-like insects that ate all of the crops in all of the fields. Let my people go. And Pharaoh said no. Lice came biting. Let my people go. And Pharaoh said no. Oh, flies, boils, pestilence, hail, and after each plague, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, no, 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 no. And then darkness fell on all the land, and the people were terrified. They didn't know if they would ever see the sun again. Moses went to Pharaoh. Let my people go. If you don't, something much, much, much worse will happen. And Pharaoh said no. And Moses and Miriam and Aaron, they told all of the Jewish households to paint the lintel over their door with blood. And the angel of death came to all the households in Egypt that did not have that mark and passed over the ones that did. And that's why this is called the story of Passover. As the angel of death took the firstborn at each house it stopped at, there was wailing and weeping and silence, even in the palace of the Pharaoh. Let my people go. And Pharaoh, cradling the body of his firstborn, said, go, go, just go. And Moses and Miriam and Aaron, they act quickly. They gather all of the people together and say, just take what you can carry. We have no time for bread to rise. And so the people brought dough with no leavening and made matzah. And we eat that today. And the people ran, and they got as far as the Red Sea when they saw there was an army behind them. Pharaoh had changed his mind. They were caught at the water. What would they do? And Moses looked at his walking stick and he stuck it in the water. And the water began to part until there were two walls of the ocean on either side of the dry path. Miriam and the women, they ran on ahead and everyone followed as quickly as they could. And they made it to the other side just in time. And Moses took the stick out of the water and it closed over Pharaoh's army. But they were safe. And Miriam, the prophet, she raised her voice in song. She sang with praise and might. We've just lived through a miracle. We're going to dance tonight. And the women dancing with their timbrels followed Miriam as she sang her song, sang a song to one who they exalted. Miriam and the women danced and sang the whole night long. In one legend, the angels started to sing, but God said no. No, it's all right for the Hebrews to celebrate their newfound freedom. But all of those who died were my children too. And we will not celebrate and dance in heaven. When the Jewish people reached the desert on the other side of the sea, they started a new life. And Moses and Miriam told them that they must tell the story of how they won their freedom to their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's grandchildren. And we are all those grandchildren. And this is our story. And that is why we tell and celebrate Passover today.
Thank you, Leanne, for such a wonderful telling and story of Passover. Whew. Passover is about commitment, not giving up on your beliefs, even in difficult situations. And what a wonderful way to introduce our covenant that guides us to do those very things. In mutual love and grace, we journey together, grounded by profound respect for diversity of beliefs and ideas, sustained by service and shared ministry, enriched through collective spiritual deepening, and a safe environment for all generations to thrive. Together, we are more than we would ever be alone. Therefore, we promise to practice radical hospitality, mindful communication, and active stewardship. Thus do we covenant with each other. We gather each week to affirm this community. Part of this affirmation is acknowledging that we share with one another our time, our talents, and our resources. We live our values by sharing half of the undesignated collection with the local nonprofit organization. This quarter, the plate share goes to California Indian Culture and Sovereignty Center. The mission of the CICSC fosters collaborative research and community service relationships between the faculty, staff, and students of USC San Marcos and members of tribal communities for the purpose of developing and conducting research projects that support the maintenance and sovereignty and culture within those communities. The California Indian Culture and Sovereignty Center was approved in May 2009 and opened its doors in November 17th, 2011. The center is the first of its kind in the state of California and focuses on serving the unique needs of American Indian students by conducting original research and preserving the cultural heritage and languages of tribal communities. The CICSC facilitates a sense of community and belonging among the Native population, both on and off campus. It prepares students to give back to their tribal communities upon graduation. If you are currently in a position to give or continue to make your pledge payments, renew your pledge payments, there are several ways that you can do that, even in the midst of shelter in place. You can write a check, mail it to the office, or you can check with our office administrator to find out how to set up auto payments through our database. Or it's very easy to donate through text to give. You can see the instructions on the screen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, how the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Breathe with me. Let's take another moment and take another breath, a conscious breath. Feel the breath move through you. Allow the breath to center you. As we hold the questions, the joys, the sorrows, all that we bring with us, the question, will we get there? It's been a long road, but we are affirming that we are going together. Beloveds, we come each week with joys, with sorrows, with our hopes and our dreams, our aspirations, our wonderings. I invite you to take another breath with me. Feel your body on the chair or the couch or the floor or in the car or wherever it is that you're joining us. And if you are viewing this later, wherever you are, just take a breath and feel your body. Pay attention to what it feels like to be in your body in this day, holding questions and hopes and possibilities. A pause in this time and take an opportunity to share in the chat your joys or your sorrows, that which you bring with you today, so that they can be seen, held, heard, so that we remember that we may have questions. We may wonder, is there a promised land? And will we get there? This time of sharing our joys and sorrows, our loves, our lostness is a time that allows us to be reminded that we are not alone. We hold in our hearts all those in our Asian American, Pacific Islander community who are still reeling from that shooting, the recent shooting in Colorado, and all who are worried or afraid, who are targeted, lost, lonely. We hold them in our hearts. For all who are celebrating hugging grandchildren because you've been vaccinated, for all who are waiting, for all who are teaching our children, all who are wondering how much longer, we hold in our hearts. Celebrating fully vaccinated parents and the sorrow, the inequity of the vaccine rollout. This pandemic has indeed given us the opportunity to see where there is equity and where there is not, which has always been the case. Now we can see it so much more clearly. And joy for Leanne's storytelling class. Yay at Maricosta. Jennifer is holding a sorrow, trying to find a place to live when there are slim pickings. So we're holding a good thought for that. Holding and loving on a litter of Irish Water Spaniel puppies, 8 of them, our dear Dr. Jennifer. The joy of being able to have helped several family and friends schedule their vaccination appointments and receiving second shots. It's good to be Linda and Bob celebrating our Sunday morning together. The Gatlins family, truly feeling a sense of new beginnings. Be celebrating Easter and spring equinox with fully vaccinated grandparents. Truly grateful and holding space for families who have lost loved ones during this time due to COVID. Yes. Take another breath with me, holding all in our hearts. Invite you into a prayer adapted from the Reverend Kristen Grassel-Schmidt that I'd like to share with you this morning. Spirit of life. Nope. We're going to hold that. Thank you. After the prayer by Reverend Grassel-Schmidt, we'll have a prayer by Reverend Mr. Barb Grieve in honor of Trans Visibility Day. But join me in this pastoral prayer. Spirit of life, we give thanks for all of our joys and all of our blessings. All of the things in our lives and our world that give us hope and happiness. We give thanks for the beauty of spring and nature's reminder that even in the harshest seasons, our lives will one day give way to new life, new beauty, and new possibility. We are thankful too for the holidays and the holy days ahead. To all who celebrated last week, we wish happy spring, Ostara. For all who celebrate this week, we wish a kosher, joyous Passover and a blessed Holy Week. The weight of the world has been heavy on our hearts for such a long time. We've had our challenges and griefs to bear. We feel for the many around us in pain and suffering. This morning, again, I pray for those most recent victims of gun violence and the politicians and gun lobbyists who enable this violence by continuing to value power and profit over human life. We pray for our democracy, under threat yet again as several states seek to pass legislation that limits voting access in ways that will make it more difficult for people of color to vote. As a colleague reminded me on Friday, we prayed this morning, not for a miracle to right so many wrongs, but to become the miracle of ourselves, to manifest all of the courage, all of the commitment of the prophets and sages we remember this time of the year. May the spirit of freedom, the heart of courage, that sees things through to the end, that never loses faith, that won't back down, be in us and with us as love and our faith that a better world is possible and guides us on. And now, a prayer for Transgender Day of Visibility by Reverend Mr. Barb Grieve.
Prayer for Trans Day of Visibility. Blessed are the trailblazers who brought us this far and are still trailblazing, still celebrating. Blessed are the drag queens and kings who remind us to not take life too seriously. Blessed are the gender benders, non-binary, gender fluid, and third gender folk, those who challenge us to reframe our gender paradigms. Blessed are the young ones who present fearlessly from the start. Blessed are their parents who make space for freedom and love their children fiercely. Blessed are the siblings and relatives who educate, support, and love us as we are. Blessed are the genderqueer youth who are struggling and still persist. Blessed are the 90-year-olds just coming out and those who have been out decades. Blessed are those whose lives were cut too short. May their stories live on through us. Blessed are the survivors. May they keep on living. Blessed are the allies learning to be accomplices. Blessed are those gathered here, witnessing, learning, celebrating. May we all commit to continue showing up, fighting for justice, celebrating all the genders in life. Amen.
Let our senses be awakened.
conscience with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Make now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle our calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Wow. Thank you to Jennifer and Adrian and Brian on guitar and shakers, as Adrian reminded us. I couldn't wait to hear this today. This is a month of commitment, as if every day was not one in which we live our commitments, consciously or not. I do appreciate the theme of this month, though. What does it mean to be a people of commitment? The opportunity to delve into it, to ask, what are my commitments to myself, to my beloveds, to the wider world? To what are our senses awakened? The earth's call. Each pilgrim in search of the true, senses awakened to compassion by the suffering that fills the wide sky, conscience and justice joining with all whose rights are denied, waking to a vision of what could be. Awakening to a vision of what could be. Commitment, devotion, love. This is a month of March, where we honor many different people. Unitarian Universalists, the Reverend James Reeb and Ms. Viola Luiso, who were killed in Selma in March of 1965. Archbishop Oscar Romero, who was killed preaching liberation. This is the month of the March on Selma, over that Edmund Pettus Bridge. This is the month where we honor Cesar Chavez. This is the month where that's part of a season of nonviolence from January 30th, the date of the assassination of Gandhi, to April 4th, the date of the assassination of Dr. King, where we commit ourselves to nonviolence. And this is a month where we celebrate women's her story. We've lifted up transgender visibility, devoted to our trans kin. All committed, devoted people, seemingly to a cause beyond themselves, but so intimately connected because, beloveds, we belong to each other. Of course, we have the story that we heard today, as those of us who are Jewish celebrate the Passover, and we look to that story for deep truths. My colleague, who I quoted earlier, the Reverend Kristen Schmidt, wrote so meaningfully about this that I just wanted to share some of her words with you today. She remembers the ancient story of the enslaved Hebrew population that had grown, as Leanne told in the story, so big that they were worried. Jochebed had been able to protect her son Moses from the fate, but she wasn't able to protect him forever. So she put him in that waterproof basket, right, Leanne? Laid him inside and floated him down the Nile River. The same river that could have claimed his life led him to a new one, Reverend Kristen writes. We heard that Pharaoh's own sister found him in the basket, claimed him as her own. And that's how a man from Pharaoh's own house came to become the prophet through which the Hebrews were freed. My colleague, Reverend Kristen writes, earlier this week, as she learned about the unaccompanied children seeking asylum at this country's southern border, I realized their parents faced the same decision as Jacob had. To keep their children with them would mean death, whether through starvation, gang violence, or human trafficking. And while the Biden administration is making the process, is in the process of making improvements to the asylum process, right now, the United States will not admit families, but will admit unaccompanied children into the country. So these parents chose the only other option available to them. They gave them what food and money they could spare and sent them afloat on a river of humanity seeking safety in the same countries whose policies have destroyed their own. I was so moved by Reverend Schmidt making that connection. As just 2 weeks ago, I stood at the San Diego-Tijuana border, holding vigil, naming the names, lighting candles for the lives that have been lost. Reverend Schmidt reminds us the story of Passover and the larger story of the Exodus, of which it is a part, is thousands of years old, but still told as Leanne told it, and told around tables across the world. And yet the themes are as relevant as they ever were. Chattel slavery may no longer be legal in this country, but the recent election has revealed just how far some people will go to secure white supremacy's hold on power. The pandemic has shown just how willing the powers that be are to sacrifice people's lives for the sake of profit. Just as in Moses' day, the rich and the powerful take risks because they are committed to staying both rich and powerful, while the poor and the oppressed take risks for freedom, she writes. And she goes on, it was a commitment to love and freedom that led the Hebrew people to follow Moses out of Egypt, to wander through the wilderness for 40 years. It was risky, Leanne, to follow a guy who said he'd heard the voice of God. But it was a bigger risk to stay where their lives were valuable only for what they could produce and where they would never be able to enjoy the fruits of their labors. This commitment also required them to be open to change. They had to leave the only place they'd ever known and wander for many years, not able to make homes and routines. Even the bread they ate along the journey, the very stuff of life, was unleavened, as Leanne told us, different from what they were used to. This commitment was risky and brought lots of change. And in the book of Exodus, you can read all about how people argued, lost faith, and they didn't always trust Moses, and about how Moses made some bad choices and got frustrated with the people. But even then, they didn't reverse course. They didn't back down. And even though Moses never got to see it, they reached the promised land anyway. And my colleague ends with these words, And they were utterly changed and reshaped as a people along the way. Utterly changed and reshaped as a people. This time, beloveds, is our time as a people to be utterly changed and shaped, reshaped, as we traverse pandemic, the threats to democracy, killings, horrors, and to take that step into the water, into that sea. Now, remember, the seas didn't part until someone stepped into the water, allowing ourselves to be utterly changed, shaped along the way. For those of us who are Christian, we are acknowledging another commitment as we enter Holy Week, a ride into Jerusalem to death that our brother, the prophet Jesus, took, knowingly defying empire, laws, norms, committed, devoted to the most marginalized. And those of us who follow that way are utterly changed and reshaped along the way as we follow that prophet and teacher, upending empire, upending oppression. Commitment will do that. Yeah. Commitment will utterly change and reshape us. Devotion will do that. Love will do that. As I've considered commitment this month in my reading and reflection, my prayer, my work with the groups that have used this theme throughout the month, commitment equals devotion, equals love. Consciously or unconsciously, we live from our commitments. In this time of deep stories of change, transformation, of risk, we are asked, to what am I committed? To what am I devoted? To what would I give my life? To what would you give your life? To what are we, you, me, giving our lives? For those of us who might not be rich, but with privilege, the question of what does it mean to be a people of commitment asks, what risks am I willing to take? Am I willing to leave my comfort and to be utterly changed and reshaped? Clearly, certainly, I am committed to my health and my well-being. I'm committed to my family, my intimates, you. And I am not separate at all, am I? My commitment, devotion extends to the world and the beings in it, not because I'm particularly noble, but because I don't know where they end and I begin, and I end and they begin. Theologian Henry Nelson Wyman wrote, inevitably in our lives, we commit ourselves to something, whether worthy or not. The direction and the intensities of our loyalties give shape and meaning to our lives. Loyalties, commitments, covenants, the promises we make to one another. These are the things that tell us to what, I would add, to whom we belong. And by doing so, they tell us who we are. Process theologian Charles Hartshorne wrote, "Love of self and love of others are much on the same footing, and neither makes much sense merely by itself. Apart from our interest in others, what are we? Start with those who are our bodily selves, and go on to our sympathy with characters in history or fiction, our love for relatives and friends, other," he writes, "lesser animals," I might not say lesser, "other animals, plants." Then he says, "Apart from this, we have no self. It is our loves that make us anything worth mentioning. It is our loves that make us anything worth mentioning." What is it that you love? How have you been utterly changed and reshaped by the commitments that you've made, are making, or can anticipate making? Beloveds, this month of exploring what it means to be a people of commitment may end. But the stories that we tell over and over, our commitments, our devotion, and our love does not end. I love you. And amen. As we go forth extinguishing our chalice and still staying connected. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. Although we extinguish this flame, we carry in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, the fire of commitment, the fire of commitment until we are together again. What do you think, Kimberly?
I wonder what we're singing at the end.
I wonder what we're singing. What do you think we should sing in the month of commitment?
Curious about that. So something's come into my head that Reverend Beth, you are the host, so therefore view follows you. So
All right.
gallery at the bottom of participants is going to be all on you. Just
All right.
walked into that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I would love it if you would all join me in singing. The lyrics are going to be put into the chat, and I bet a lot of you will know a lot of these.
So how am I doing? Are we all on gallery view or not? Because I'm not sure if I did it right.
We can't tell from here, but
hey, anybody in the chat want to let us know? Can you see all of us or just me or what?
yeah.
Otherwise, we'll just
Not gallery yet. So
let's watch Kimberly instead then, and we'll see what we can do.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh boy. All right.
Boy.
Thank you. But
All
let's all sing.
From the light of days remembered, burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets As
Thank
Karen
you.
said, may it be so.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Thank you so much. Now I have to confess, y'all. Sometimes when I'm outside, I don't sing really loud, because the neighbors, but my window is open and I belted it out, neighbors walking by. So here we are. I do hope that you did sing along with us and will continue to journey with us. I have an announcement, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about pledge and bring Brad on. And first of all, I want to thank the Eighth Principle Project task force, the people who are working to bring us an awareness of the Eighth Principle, and to let you know that there are going to be 2 town hall meetings that you can attend to learn more about the Eighth Principle. The first one will be on April 8th, a Thursday at 6 p.m. The other is going to be on April 14th, a Wednesday at noon. Now, these are informational sessions. The Reverend Pat McLaughlin will be with us. He's part of the UUA board, and he's going to talk a little bit about the process. This is all to help prepare us to vote on the Eighth Principle. Now, the other news that I have for you, and I want you to just mark your calendars, on April 25th, Sunday, April 25th, we will be joined in the service by Paula Cole Jones, who is the person who developed the Eighth Principle. So Paula will be with us in worship, preaching, and then that will be followed by a workshop that everyone is invited to. And we really, really encourage you to come. That will be Sunday, April 25th, 12:30 to 2 with a break, and then 2:30 to 4. So that's my announcement. Keep your eyes out for a flyer. Yeah. And then what else did we want to talk about a little bit before we go to patio?
Brad might be able, if maybe Brad could join us, we were going to do
Yeah.
a little additional pledge.
Yeah, would love to hear from you, Brad. There he is. Hey, here's Brad, our finance director. Hi, Brad.
Hey there. Hey, look,
Hey,
I was trying to join.
So glad to see you as a panelist.
Oh, I feel very privileged and everything. So my name is Brad Dre, and I am the finance director, and I have been for the last year plus. So pleased to be able to perform this service for the fellowship. And I want to just talk a little bit about pledge. We're in the middle of our pledge. And in fact, maybe a little bit past the middle, we are coming up to the final leg. This is pretty much the final week. We want everyone to, demonstrate their commitment to the fellowship. And what's been going on so far is really, I think there's a lot of excitement and passion, and I'm really excited to see what's happened so far. So last year we were so worried about the economic effects of COVID, and I think this year, we're still worried about it, but it looks like people are able to pledge at levels that'll sustain our organization. So let me tell you how to pledge. I recently learned you can go to our website on the homepage, scroll down a bit, and there will be a button that'll take you to our pledge progress page. That's a great place to fill in the form and make your pledge. You can also, if you want to get a paper ballot, that is definitely an option. And so there's a button there too where you can request a paper ballot. Another way is that the progress emails, I think, are being sent out every Friday. So if you look on Friday, you'll see a pledge email, and there'll be a button in there to go to the pledge form. Okay, now who should be pledging? This is what I really love to talk about. So I feel that if you feel connected to the fellowship, you should seriously, seriously consider making a pledge. And this would include people who are not yet members. I mean, you don't have to be a member to make a pledge. And I think that in fact is, it's common. You know, becoming a member is a big commitment. I want to say making a pledge is maybe a little bit smaller. So we definitely encourage people to make a pledge who maybe haven't in the past. That's why we made our goal this year of 120 pledges. We're about halfway there. In this final week, I want to see a big, you know, flood of pledges, and then we'll get there on the final bit. So, thank you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about pledge. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. And we've got a slide that we can put up. And yeah, I think that one of the things that we talked about, our worship team, as we were preparing, is so many of us, many folks, like Mary Claire just said pledged before she was a member. And I love what you had to say about membership and pledge, Brad. Thanks for all the hard work that everyone is doing as we, yeah, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, I'm so pleased with our team. Yeah, we're doing just such a great job, and I love it too that we're doing it without pledge meetings. So if you like to do, you know, fun tasks, but maybe don't like meetings so much, maybe this, you know, let's make this model work, and we can try it again next year. Another thing I love about our team so far is that I love the way we came up with with our theme for this year. It was a truly collaborative kind of brainstorming effort, and it just came out. It was great. Yeah, so our team has been incredibly valuable so far. I'm really happy with the results. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Brad. And we're really grateful that, you know, Michael Muffson came up with the logo. It was a great process of coming up with it. And then it was like, yeah, who can make a logo? Oh yeah, Michael. So yeah, Adrian, thanks for sharing your story there. Yeah. Yeah, it does help folks to feel involved, doesn't it? So if people have any questions, you can put them in the chat right now, or you can join us for patio time, virtual patio time for coffee hour. And Brad, are you going to be able to join us for coffee hour as well?
Yes, I'll be able to for a short time.
Yeah, just for a little bit, not to put you on the spot that I just did, Brad. Hey, Brad, what else? Let me see if I can make all sorts of other uncomfortable asks of you. No, seriously, appreciate everyone's devotion. So we are going, in just a moment, we're going to end this webinar. We're going to put up a slide in a moment for, and there we are. You've got it twice. You can join us in for our virtual patio time. I think that's probably it, y'all. So in 10 minutes, the patio time will be open. So it's about 11. It's 11:11 right now. So at about 11:20, you can gather and we'll visit for a little bit. And yeah, thanks all for being an amazing, committed community. Speaking of commitment and devotion, right, Brad? Really appreciate everyone. So thanks, y'all. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.